You can't kill people to balance your budget. You just can't do that. We got to cut spending somewhere somehow in order to get our balanced budget back. But it's not going to happen with Medicaid.
Even Jan Brewer, who is the former Republican governor of Arizona, is blowing the whistle, sounding the alarm on what is going on with the budget Republicans are advancing this week. This is a budget that calls for $1.5 trillion with a T, dollars in spending cuts, which would inevitably hit the social safety net programs that millions of Americans rely on. I'm talking Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. Beginning yesterday and going into today, Democrats have been protesting. Outside the Capitol on Sunday, Democratic Senator Cory Booker and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries held a more than 12-hour sit-in protest, along with supporters, religious leaders, and fellow lawmakers who spoke out about the impact of the proposed Republican cuts.
What's happening right now is not just happening in our urban areas. It is happening in our rural areas in a big way. They are dependent on these food programs and SNAP. And the farmers that produce the food that goes to the schools, that goes to the school lunches, that goes to the SNAP programs are just hanging on an edge.
Among the lawmakers who attended the sit-in was Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Democrat of Minnesota, and she joins me now. I will note, as the protests continue today, Reverend Barber and other clergy were praying in the Capitol Rotunda, and he was removed from the Capitol Rotunda. Police surrounded Reverend Barber, and they expelled everyone, including the press, from the Rotunda to presumably arrest them, according to this report on social. We did reach out to Reverend Barber. He confirmed that he was removed from the Capitol Rotunda and arrested. I will note he's out now, folks. We talked about this energy at the top of the show that we are seeing from not just Democrats, but people all across the country, clergy, elected folks, non-elected folks. I was really struck by the 12-hour sit-in on Sunday. A lot of the reporters were at brunch, okay, post-White House Correspondents' Dinner, but I saw it on streaming. It was everywhere. How did you come to find your way to the steps?
Well, you know, Senator Booker and Leader Jeffries, this was their idea, and they brought people together, and it wasn't just electeds, but when I heard about it, I'm like, okay, I'm going over there. And I think that's what a lot of people do, because I was really surprised. Families on bicycles, people that just heard about it, that were streaming it, and I think that's the kind of grassroots attention we're seeing across the country. I think early on, people were shocked by what was going on. They were, of course, saddened. They still are. But what matters now is people are turning out in droves. You saw it in the Supreme Court race in Wisconsin, where the nominee, the Democratic nominee, beat the Republican in 10 different counties that Trump had won. So this isn't just poll numbers. It is 100 days, which are just the worst poll numbers we've seen in any president since polling began. In the first 100 days, 37% of Americans don't only believe that he's handling the economy right. Think about that. Those are not just the incredible activists that are turning out at these events or sitting on the steps. This is also people who are quieter in rural areas, people who voted for them. I know a bunch of them voted for Donald Trump and me. They come up to me and tell me this, and they are not happy with what's going on because they don't like the chaos. The chaos is up, corruption is up, and yes, costs are up. Ask anyone in the egg aisle.
You know, it strikes me that sometimes, you know, people say we talk $1 trillion is a lot of money. And it's like, oh my God, where are the cuts coming from? What does this mean? And it means cuts to Medicaid. It means cuts to Medicare. Like, these people are going to feel this. And you dovetail that with what's happening with the tariffs, and it doesn't seem that any relief is actually coming anytime soon. And I was struck by what you said on the Capitol steps in rural areas, and we were talking off camera, and I'm like, what do people farm in Minnesota? Because, you know, I'm from Nebraska, and you said they do everything, and the soybeans are a key part of it.
That's right.
I am thinking about if the farmers can't sell their soybeans, what does that mean for the people that they employ, not just those farmers? What does it mean for the restaurants that can't import the...
Exactly.
What is really...
Grocery stores, small grocery stores.
What's the impact really going to be?
Let's just look at this perfect storm that's happening right now. You already have grocery prices up in his first 100 days. You already have many of these Social Security the very big concern of our seniors. They call in, no one's answering. They're closing down 47 offices. The budget, as you just pointed out, Simone, with Medicaid, there's no other way, the Congressional Budget Office said, to make these cuts except on the back of people who are in nursing homes. When you've got, in my state, half of the people in nursing homes are on Medicaid, even higher nationally. You look at that, and then you combine it with this economic assault. And this is going to hit rural Americans like you've never seen, because they tend to be older, they're farmers, they're living on smaller margins. And when you start messing around with their markets, 20% of what our farmers produce in the U.S. is exported. And when they start getting the retaliatory tariffs, or no one wants to buy their soybeans in China because they can buy them from Brazil very easily, you're going to devastate that farm economy. And what really bothers me as someone that cares about antitrust is that the big guys, you know, Tim Cook, and I, you know, glad that he saved Apple, but he can walk in there and get an exemption for Apple. Or you got these big investors that show up with the Treasury Secretary at a closed-door meeting with a bank and with investors. My small business woman of the year that runs Busy Baby out of southern Minnesota, check it out, little stuff for the high chairs. She didn't get invited to the White House or the investment banker thing at J.B. Morgan. She didn't get invited. So you have this, the people who are going to be the roadkill are the consumers. It's the people that don't have the safety net. It's the smallest businesses. It's the small farmers. And that's what you're already starting to see happen. Yes, it matters for the biggest stuff and the economy, but it's really going to hurt the small people first.
The small folks. And we're almost out of time, but I have to wonder, I'm concerned about the potential for nefarious activity around the elections in 26, not just in 2028, but 26 specifically, given what we are already seeing happen. You are a former prosecutor. Are you concerned about what the Republicans might try to do to ensure they win elections?
Of course, you've got a president there that has repeatedly denied the results of the election. He actually just recently said he was going to, Chris Krebs should be investigated, who is the guy who worked for him, who had the audacity to say that the elections were safe, just like his attorney general at the time, Bill Barr, did. So you've got that as the backdrop, and then you have the fact, as we've learned in the last few days, that they have decimated the leadership in the Civil Rights Division at the Justice Department, and that people are leaving, and you just won't have the will to enforce those laws. And I'm thinking not just on the actual voting, which I hope will hold because the states often control the mechanisms for voting, but you've got the enforcement of the voting laws. Even the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision in 2023, this same Supreme Court voted against racial gerrymandering on a 5-4 vote. And that was a case that was supported by, not brought by, but supported by Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. They bring these cases. That's their job, to make sure that the law is enforced. So, of course, this is a major concern when you look at who works in the Civil Rights Division and the kind of important work they have to do when it comes to elections.
Or who used to work there, because now they're all gone.